I still remember the exact moment her smile vanished, 6 plates on the table, candles lit, and an entire restaurant staff taking one massive breath before screaming the loudest birthday song she'd ever hear. Because that night, justice wasn't quiet, it was deafening. If you've ever worked in customer service or watched someone get bullied just for doing their job, you're going to want to hear this. So before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, drop a like if you believe in restaurant karma, and stick around because this is one of those rare moments where the bad guy absolutely gets what they deserve. Back in 2015, I was grinding my way through nursing school, paying rent and tuition by waitressing at a small restaurant that lived and died by word of mouth. No flashy ads. No billboards, just reputation. If people loved you, they told their friends. If they didn't, well, that could kill business fast. That culture mattered, and everyone who worked there understood it. By then, I'd been there several months. Long enough to prove I wasn't flaky. Long enough to know the menu backwards. Long enough that when a new waiter finished official training, management would quietly slide them next to my section and trust me to keep an eye out. I wasn't a trainer on paper, but in reality, I was the safety net. That's how I ended up next to him. He was older than most of us, recently released from somewhere he didn't talk about much, and trying desperately to get his footing. Soft, spoken, polite, the kind of guy who apologized even when he wasn't wrong. It was his first night running a full section alone, and I could see the nerves in every movement. The tight shoulders, the way he double-checked tickets, the shallow breaths before approaching tables. I was ready for weeds. I was not ready for them. A 6, top of 20, something slid into his section late in the night. Loud, confident. That specific brand of attitude that says, "We are about to be a problem." At the center sat her, the self-appointed leader. Chin tilted up. Eyes scanning him like he'd already failed some invisible test. A few minutes later, he found me in the service station, eyes wide. "They're asking for something, I don't think it's on the menu," he whispered. "She says we have the ingredients and that the other location makes it all the time." I could have told him to stand his ground. Normally, I would have. But first night, full section, adrenaline already flooding his system. That lesson would have shattered him. So I told him to check with the kitchen. If they said no, I'd handle the table. The cooks shrugged. "Yeah, we can do it." Basically a wrap, crisis averted. Or so I thought. That order flipped a switch. From that moment on, every single time he returned to the table, she demanded something new. Extra sauce. Different drink. A modification. Another request the second he set something down. No thank yous. No patience. Just snapping commands like he existed solely to orbit her needs. I watched his face grow paler with each trip. The panic set in. He started missing steps at other tables, not because he didn't care, but because she was consuming all his oxygen. I gave him a nod whenever our eyes met and quietly absorbed his overflow, weaving his tables into my own rotation so he could breathe. This went on for their entire meal. In the back, I pulled him aside and gently warned him that this table might stiff him. I told him I wouldn't touch the tips from his other tables, that this night wasn't a reflection of his ability. He nodded, but I could see it in his eyes. He was on the edge of quitting. And then came the final twist of the knife. They stayed past closing. Last table in our section. Lights dimmed. Chairs flipped elsewhere. That's when he approached me again, voice barely holding together. "They want to use employee discounts," he said. "More than one." "Is that allowed?" I stared at him. Employee. Turns out, she'd spent the entire meal tearing him down, laughing at him, telling him she was a trainer at our other location, that he was the worst waiter she'd ever seen, that she'd never let someone like him last a week. Suddenly, everything clicked. The impossible orders, the entitlement, the cruelty disguised as confidence. On top of that, she claimed there were multiple birthdays at the table, free cakes, birthday song. Immediately, my chest went hot. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I wanted to drag her out by that smug expression and show her what real embarrassment felt like. Instead, I smiled, because I had a better idea. I told him to prep the cakes. "Don't go out yet, I'd handle the rest." Our managers were rare gems in the restaurant world. They backed us. I pulled the front-end manager aside and gave him the fastest rundown of the night. The abuse, the fake authority, the stacked discounts she absolutely knew were not allowed. His smile disappeared. This was a word of mouth restaurant. An employee from another location abusing staff here. That wasn't just rude, it was poison. I asked if I could handle the birthday. He grinned. Told me yes, and while I ran, he made calls. Boss to boss. Employee numbers exchange, consequences set in motion. I grabbed everyone, servers, hosts, line cooks, even the dishwasher. Half the restaurant was already cut, which meant we had numbers. I explained the plan in under 10 seconds. Loud. As loud as you can, then I nodded to the server. Time to drop cakes. 6 plates hit the table, candles glowing. And there it was, that self-satisfied smirk on her face. She thought she'd won. Thought this was proof of her power. Then we inhaled. And we screamed. The loudest birthday song imaginable. Echoing off the corner walls. No background noise. No competing tables. Just pure, unfiltered chaos aimed directly at them. Their smiles collapsed instantly. Hands flew to ears. They physically recoiled in their seats. It was long. It was relentless. My ears rang. I didn't care. When it ended, the silence was heavy, uncomfortable, earned, but we weren't done. At the host stand, she was handed a phone. Her posture changed. The color drained from her face. Then came the tears, the excuses, the panic. No discounts. Not one. Her manager had been called, so had the general manager. Her behavior had consequences, real ones. I don't know what happened after that night. Maybe she tried to crawl back. Maybe she didn't. What I do know is this. That older waiter finished his shift. He didn't quit. He came back the next day. And sometimes, justice doesn't need fists or shouting matches. Sometimes, it just needs a room full of people who decide they've had enough, and the courage to sing. If you've ever seen karma hit exactly when it should, drop a comment and tell me about it. Hit like if this made you smile, subscribe for more stories where the universe balances the scales, and share this with anyone who's ever survived a nightmare customer.